Okay, so after the last few superhero movies, you might be like me and look at DC's Blue Beetle with a lot of skepticism and maybe even a lack of enthusiasm. I mean, it's another origin story, but it is a new character. So is this one going to break out of the superhero slump? As he searches to find his purpose in the world, Jaime Reyes unexpectedly finds himself in possession of an ancient relic of alien biotechnology called the Scarab, and when it suddenly chooses Jaime to be its symbiotic host, he is bestowed with an incredible suit of armor capable of extraordinary and unpredictable powers, forever changing his destiny as he becomes Blue Beetle. Now, he's probably most known for his role as Miguel in Cobra Kai, but Xolo Maridueña, he takes the lead role as Jaime Reyes for this superhero origin story. Now, first, because he comes across as a nice and easygoing guy, Maridueña is likable right from the start. He's not only got a loving family, but he also returns that love and respect easily and then genuinely. And although the story does rush quite a bit on the origin of the Scarab that then starts the whole Blue Beetle thing going, we get a good intro into the Reyes family, which is really where the heart of this story rests. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be action and drama and even some peril, but the driving force behind the narrative is family. And we see that play out both in the Reyeses, but also in a young woman Jaime meets named Jenny, who's played by Bruna Marquezine. Now, as Jaime, Xolo embodies the reluctant superhero well. But I love that it's not that traditional trope of, oh, I'm not worthy, but instead it's like, how the heck did this happen to me, and how do I stop it? Which then adds some naturally humorous moments. And following that mindset, we get further glimpses into Jaime's values as he takes on foes. And I appreciated that he's not instantly drunk with unlimited power, just ready to thrash anyone or anything, but instead, he's actually afraid of what these new powers can do. And as to be expected, like with pretty much any origin story when a character gets new powers, we watch a small sequence of mishaps and struggles. And for this time, it felt a lot like The Greatest American Hero, with some excellent bumbling and a serious lack of instructions. There are also some similarities to other superheroes that we've seen before. I mean, both in beginnings and then even in the costume or their armor. I mean, you might see resemblances to Spider-Man's Iron Spider outfit or Iron Man's flying in his pulse beams. And these didn't really bother me because I figure that pretty much all of the comic book heroes borrow traits from one or another, so it's not really that big of a deal. But what did bother me slightly, especially as somebody who was completely ignorant of Blue Beetle, is that there wasn't a lot of development on the lore surrounding the Scarab. In the opening credits, we're shown some animations and graphics that clue us into how it came to be on Earth. Sort of. But then I had zero insight as to how or why Cord Industries, and I'm going to get to them in just a bit, they knew how or even where to look for this thing in the first place. I mean, they're searching for it. And I didn't need a ton of exposition, but the film almost assumes that the trifle of info that's given at the start is enough to quell all curiosities. For me, it wasn't. It didn't hurt the overall understanding of the movie, and at the end became really less of an issue, but it was an itch that wasn't scratched for me, and I found that to be a bummer. Now, Cord Industries, they're the entity that's the baddie in this. More importantly, Susan Sarandon's Victoria Cord, who runs the joint. Now, she plays a cold and calloused, business-driven leader so well. I mean, at pretty much no point in the movie do we ever feel any sympathy for Cord. She's ruthless and mean and is extremely power-hungry. And I like that her motivations and agendas are clear and then even justified through the story. So she doesn't feel like she's just some random villain that's inserted into the story. I think her plan could have been more fleshed out to show a wider reach of power, but I liked her as the enemy. She also reminded me a bit of Jeff Bridges' Obadiah in Iron Man. I mean, someone who might have felt slighted and now uses that as their impetus for bringing the hammer down on people. Now, I mentioned how the heart and the driver of this film is family, and honestly, when I saw the trailer, I did roll my eyes at a couple of the scenes because they just looked cheesy and stereotypical. I mean, there was Nana holding a huge Gatling gun, and then the crazy uncle being crazy for a laugh. And I was pretty sure that the humor would be forced, and most of the interactions were going to be cringy. Now, I'm happy to say how wrong I was. I mean, sure, George Lopez as the crazy Uncle Rudy, he acts crazy, and sometimes for a laugh. But he also shares some heartfelt wisdom in addition to just having redemptive moments that upend all assumptions. And even the scene with Nana that's shown in the trailer has more to it than just that odd image of her holding a gigantic gun. I mean, there's a context to her character that adds humor and bite. In addition to Lopez, there's also Elpidia Carrillo, Belissa Escobedo, Damián Alcázar, and Adriana Barraza. Now, their chemistry feels genuine, and there are a few scenes that really could put some tears in your eyes. There are real emotional moments, and then along with some risks that we typically don't see in superhero movies, especially in the first ones. Okay, I guess maybe there's Batman's parents and then Spider-Man's Uncle Ben, probably even more, but in general, you get the idea, right? It doesn't seem like the first film of a character's arc creates such emotionally touching moments. Now, one character that I was looking forward to seeing, but then got pretty disappointed by their lack of use, is Harvey Guillén. He is grossly underutilized. I mean, he barely gets any lines and is really only important for one predictable scene. He could have brought so much more, but his character was pretty much sidelined. Now, for the visuals, I think they're fun, but not always perfect or even awesome. And because of the nature of Blue Beetle and the abilities that come with it, a ton of this utilizes CGI. The heads-up display that Jaime sees while the suit's mask is on, I found it kind of odd. Now, the graphics resemble the rotoscoped look of a film, kind of like a Scanner Darkly, where people are semi-animated, but still with some hard lines for features. It's not something bad, it's just weird. And then a lot of the action sequences, they take place either at night or in dark areas. So it's hard to say for sure if flaws might have been covered up thanks to the shadows. Now, a few of the times, especially when we watch Blue Beetle wield a huge sword, the graphics, they look completely animated. I mean, they just really lacked the texture of something tangible. There wasn't a point like the many times in The Flash where it was so distracting or looked just so god-awful that you question really if you're even seeing a finished product. I mean, just sometimes here, they didn't look as polished or as awesome as we might want. Now, for fans of the comic, I really do think there are some Easter eggs that are going to be appreciated. And I say think because I'm not 100% sure that they're nods to the comics, but there are some that certainly look like they would be inserted for those super fans. And also, there's a mid-credit scene, and it's pretty important, so you don't want to miss that one. There's also a post-credit scene, and that one really is just more silly than anything, so if you do need to skip out, missing that one is totally fine. I was a little concerned before it began that 127 minutes might feel too long, but I didn't notice the time. The pace was varied, and there's a good balance between the drama and the character building, and then the action sequences. The final scene, it's a good one, and it takes up quite a bit of time. It's filled with humor, serious danger, and then some gut check moments. I ended up being pleasantly surprised with this. I was fighting the superhero burnout, and thanks to a story that's centered on family and love, there's a strong narrative that's then supported by some humor and even social commentary. Xolo Maridueña rises to the occasion and becomes the superhero the story needs while also providing the out-of-costume character worth rooting for. The CGI and special effects aren't always flawless, and the lore could be more developed to build out the story better, but the focus on the loving bond of family makes this memorable and enjoyable. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and a bunch of violence, and one scene made me laugh and wince all at the same time. I give Blue Beetle 3.5 out of 5 couches. So where are you at with superhero fatigue? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.